Welcome everyone to a new episode of our series of Fleetcast episodes we are calling Rewrites. This is where we take an episode of Star Trek or something, who knows, it's Star Trek so far, and we take a really, really bad or not very good episode and we try and make it a lot better. The format, in case you've missed our first couple of episodes, which are also available on the channel, it's pretty simple. Myself and my fellow panelists will have a few minutes, tightly controlled few minutes, to pitch our ideas about how we would take the episode in question and do it better. However, as always, to avoid us going crazy like Chris and going off in wild directions, we have a couple of rules. First, well, mainly just try and keep it relatively coherent and resembling the original series that it's from and the original idea. So it should kind of vaguely resemble the original in some way. And make it kind of fit to the style and genre of the series that it has come from. Before we dive into what we are about to jump into first, we won't tell you the episode yet. I want my panelists to introduce themselves, and I'm going to ask Ben to introduce himself first. Tell me a little bit about yourself again, because you've already done this before, but tell us about yourself and what you love and hate about limbs.
Okay, so I'm Ben. I run the Power Rangers game in the fleet and huge Power Rangers fan, hence why I'm currently looking at a Mega Dragon Zord on the shelf. And love and hate about limbs. I love that I've got them. I hate when you invariably get that itch in the worst possible spot to get to, usually bottom of your foot, particularly when you're in trainers. And funny how you mention an itch and suddenly you get one in your arm.
Brilliant. Love it. Absolutely. Straight to the point. Becca.
I'm Becca.
Pestry, whatever you'd like to go
I
by.
am Becca. I am the GM of Atlantis and SS Mary Rose. I am co-host of Women of Nerd Culture, and occasionally I host on Fleetcast. What do I like about limbs? I like the fact that I can go like this. And what do I hate about them? Well, they are easily broken.
Good point.
Yes.
I like that you almost broke your microphone as well.
Yes.
When you were wiggling your arms.
That's right. It's not a thing. It'll be fine.
Great. And for those who don't know me yet, hi, I'm Paul. I'm the host of this little show we have running at the moment. Woohoo, look at me. I get to watch all the bad episodes of Star Trek for your pleasure and delight. What do I hate about limbs? Do you know what I hate about limbs? I came across, now this is kind of tangent, I came across a trailer for a game the other day called Fear and Hunger. I don't know if anyone's ever heard of it. It's quite an old game. Horror kind of RPG, but in that game, like, it is quite common for you just to get your limbs cut off, and you have to kind of go through the rest of the game with no legs or with one arm. It looks pretty horrific and horrendous. Not going to recommend that to anyone. That's made me hate limbs.
I now want to play this game.
No,
I kind of want to play this game as well. I think
no, you don't.
I hate horror movies. Love horror games.
I do love a good horror game.
I'll let you guys go and research it yourself, and then come back to me and tell me whether you actually.
That'll be in the next episode when we team up. We could give some feedback.
Thank you both. Why did I ask you about limbs? Well, today we are going back all the way to Star Trek: The Animated Series, and the classic episode known as BEM. I have to pronounce it BEM, BEM. BEM, which is infamous for introducing an alien that's limbs detach for some reason. It's not really it's a strange episode, this one, and I don't know if I got it necessarily. I don't know. It's a strange one.
Very hard episode. So obviously I've reviewed this for Fleetcast Reviews, and I think it was actually one of episodes that we've done very recently. And it's a very interesting episode. There is a lot going on, but not much of it makes sense. I can 100% see why it was voted the worst episode for the animated series, and it rightly deserves that.
It's just
title.
Impressive. Sorry, it's impressive that there is an episode that can be called the worst in the animated series because although it has some really good ones, it also has some really, really bad ones.
I have actually really enjoyed the review journey I've done of the animated series. I've really enjoyed it. This is my worst episode. One, it doesn't have a Hellspock because we know that I love a Hellspock in all episodes. And it's awful. It just makes no sense. Like there are a lot of things about the animated series that do not make sense, and this is one of them. Like this episode just makes no sense. It's kind of got no end, it's got no beginning, and it's got no middle, and it just kind of
That's
feels like
yeah.
There's also the fact that the stuff that Bem does early on doesn't actually work because he's working on a lot of assumptions about, oh, it's going to be Kirk and Spock that are going to do this. It's going to be Kirk and Spock that are going to do this. It's like, what if they turned around and said to someone else?
yeah. But I also think it does suffer from the fact that it is a 25-minute episode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If it was maybe a normal length episode that we are used to getting from, Star Trek The Next Generation, even Discovery, and even the Strange New Worlds, I think it would have been better. I think there would have been a lot more scope to expand on it.
Uh,
It's
one
just,
of the big,
yeah, it's just a lot.
yeah, it also helps. It also doesn't help that because of that they don't really get to explain what's going on with
Yeah,
them as a concept because it's like,
yeah.
what?
We've never seen the species before, and we've never seen it again.
Well,
I
we
kind
did.
of get why.
We did see it in Lower Decks.
See, I've probably on an episode that I've not seen yet.
Which
You've
season?
not seen?
I've
You've
not seen
seen
all
it?
of Lower Decks yet
Oh, well, there you go.
because I'm not paying for Paramount.
Spoilers. Spoilers.
It's okay.
Spoilers.
Everyone spoils everything for me. It's fine.
Launching into, because I like to add a little bit of trivia about every episode we do this for. BEM itself, the kind of phrase BEM is short for bug-eyed monster, apparently. So it was selected as an acronym during production of the original series because they wanted to do an original series episode called BEM, and then they turned it into an animated series episode, apparently. And the writer decided he wanted an actual bug-eyed monster in an episode. Interesting. The other piece of really interesting trivia about this episode, which you might like, is this is canonically the first time you find out Kirk's middle name is Tiberius.
Yeah.
That's really cool. I liked that little bit of trivia. That was nice.
Yeah.
Cool. And on that note, I'm going to hand over to Ben to pitch us. How are you going to fix BEM?
Okay, I am going to throw almost everything out of the window because, yeah, this thing ain't salvageable.
Is that within the rules?
Technically,
Well,
yes,
we'll
because
see.
I've kept an alien. I've kept it called BEM.
Okay.
There has to be something that resembles the original plot. That is from the original plot. Yes, I am very much pulling a Kirk on the rules here. So, we're going to open with the standard captain's log while we see a shot of the Enterprise in orbit. Kirk narrates that they're investigating a planet which boasts immense energy readings and massive dilithium deposits, and Starfleet wants them to investigate. An away team beams down into the forest, consisting of Kirk, Spock, McCoy, and our two red shirts for this episode, because you've got to have the red shirts. Lieutenant Matthew Michaels and Lieutenant Mateo Michaels. They are identical twin brothers because it's cheaper to animate two identical figures than two unique ones. We find out that Matthew has 3 children and a wife back home, and Mateo's wife's expecting their first child, because we've got to care about these guys. The away team begin exploring, with Spock noting a tricorder shows the plant life is displaying readings consistent with neural pathways. Suddenly, vines whip down from the tops of the trees, grabbing both twins and pulling them into the branches above. Kirk orders phasers, but before they can pull the phasers, vines grab him, Spock, and McCoy and carry them away. They're taken to what appears to be a village, filled with strange green humanoid creatures, all sat in silence, simply staring. As Kirk, Spock, and McCoy are set down, all the creatures turn to look at them as one. Kirk demands to be told what's going on, and one of the figures steps forward, identifying themselves as BEM. Kirk asks if the creature is saying its name is BEM or the people are called BEM, with the answer simply being yes. The creature explains that all the figures before them, all of the flora, All are extensions of the planet itself being an entity called BEM. Spock describes the notion of a living planet as fascinating, while McCoy questions how the people stay alive. They can't eat anything from the planet, as that would be tantamount to him, Kirk, or Spock eating one of their own fingers. However, the figure instead suggests Spock conducts a scan and he will have his answers. Spock complies and explains that all of the figures before them are made out of a compendium of plant life. Their colony beings consisting of hundreds upon hundreds of plants all strung together into a more complex organism. Kirk asks why they were brought to the village and is told that Bem had initially believed the away team was with the others. Asking who the others are, Bem informs them that a ship similar to the front of the Enterprise with 2 engines arrived 3 days ago, and that beings who looked like Spock transported down before the ship vanished. Spock surmises Romulans, and upon being questioned on who the Romulans are, McCoy simply says they're people his kind don't get on well with. Bem informs the away team that it needs their help. There's an encampment of Romulans half a kilometre away. However, they have begun mining for the dilithium, and Bem states that this is extracting its life force rapidly and has rendered it unable to combat the Romulans itself without great risk. If they continue mining, Bem's core could go critical and the living planet could be lost. McCoy surmises it would be like if someone was rapidly draining his blood and it brought on some kind of sudden medical complication, with Bem describing the analogy as crude but accurate. Kirk agrees to help deal with the Romulans, however, he needs his people back. One of the figures points to a nearby tent where both twins are sat, slightly bruised in all the same spots to save on budget, but otherwise unharmed while they drink water they've been provided with. Since Ben realised the away team wasn't a threat, it had been attempting to undo the damage it had done as best it could. Kirk confirms the 2 men are all right, then they proceed to the camp, arriving just before nightfall. As they reach camp, Kirk activates his tricorder. That should be communicator, not tricorder. Requesting Scotty beam down a group of security officers on his signal. When asked what the signal is, Kirk simply responds, "When the shooting starts." We then get a scene of Kirk leading an attack on the Romulan encampment with phaser and disruptor fire going everywhere. Because, of course, this is animation. Straight lines are really cheap. We need lots of this. We're trying to make this. We're trying to make this thing like on a $20 budget. A stray phaser blast hits machinery attached to the dilithium vein, with energy beginning to surge. Bolts of purple energy lash out and begin hitting people, disintegrating Starfleet and Romulans alike. Kirk pulls out his communicator, ordering for an emergency beam out. However, as the transporter beam engages, a purple bolt strikes out and hits Mateo mid-transport, disintegrating him. Kirk immediately makes his way to the bridge with Spock while McCoy attempts to console Matthew. Upon their arrival, Uhura states that he is being hailed. Kirk asks if he means they are being hailed, but is told the hail is specifically addressed to Captain James T. Kirk. The request it put on viewer is met by a startling sight. Mateo, now coloured entirely in green, because, again, cheap. He explains that he has integrated with Bem, and Spock surmises it was caused by the energy surge from the planet hitting him exactly as the transporter beam was engaged. Mateo tells Kirk that they successfully repelled the Romulans and that Bem thanks them. Kirk states he'll contact Starfleet and arrange a level 12 quarantine be established. No one will be able to enter the sector without Starfleet showing up to escort them away in order to protect Bem from this happening again. Bem thanks them and states that Mateo wishes for his family to know that he is okay and will miss them. After the final captain's log, where Kirk states that they've left the system and Starfleet has made contact with Romulan leadership to smooth things over diplomatically, he has one final job to do. He reaches Matthew's quarters, where he tells Matthew what happened to Mateo. He assures him that Mateo is safe and well, and states that while they cannot return to Bem, he has arranged for regular contact to be maintained by deploying a subspace relay to the planet. He knows it isn't much, but he also knows it's more than some people get in regards to lost family members. Matthew asks Kirk what he means by that, and the episode concludes with Kirk answering simply, "Lieutenant, let me tell you a story about a young man named George Samuel Kirk Jr." Fade to black.
I like that.
That's really sweet.
That's
very
possibly the
sentimental.
nicest Kirk I've ever seen.
Hmm.
I've never heard. Because
was
we know I do
tugging
not
at
like
heartstrings.
Kirk. Yeah, I don't like Kirk as a character, but you kind of made him human. I like that.
He has his moments.
Mm,
Most of them are in the movies.
mm.
Do you know what I was thinking when you were talking about? I really liked that pitch, Ben, and what I really liked about it is you could have used that as the entire premise for the late seasons of Discovery. Ben could have been the cause for the whole burn.
Would have made more sense.
It would have made more sense than what we got in Discovery, anyway. But Becca's staying silent because she doesn't like that. She's going to sulk with me about that. But that was my opinion. No, I really like that pitch. I thought it was nice and sentimental. It wasn't overcomplicated. Like animated series episodes, probably quite straightforward in that respect. So I could imagine that story being told in 20, 25 minutes. Yeah, I quite liked that. And certainly it felt a little bit more emotionally connecting than what we got in the original. What do you think, Becca?
Yeah, I like it. Like I said, you've actually made Kirk human for once, and yeah, it's not complicated. It very much fits the vein of what the animated series is. It was a television series that was for Saturday mornings. Kids with the cereals. It was that type of vibe. And yeah, I think you've definitely got that.
Thank you.
Very good. I'm going to pass over to you now, Becca, because I want to hear your amazing pitch for what we can do. You've got a tough act to follow there, so I'm going to excuse myself from having to follow it.
I apologize for disappearing on your pitch. I had a tiny human who decided to scream and scream and scream and scream. So apologies. There was nothing wrong. She just wanted to tell me something, and because I wasn't listening, she decided to scream. But my pitch, as my last appearance, I'm going to turn this horror. Because if Ben gets to break the rules, so do I. So mine is it's horror. I did have a title, but I've completely lost where the title is. But Act 1 is the arrival of the Observer. The Enterprise is en route to a jungle-covered planet with unusual energy. Reading: Starfleet has assigned an alien observer to join the mission. Them. He's a species largely unknown to the Federation, known only through fragmented records and unsettling rumors. Bem's arrival is abrupt. He transports aboard without clearance, appears in the corridor ahead of Kirk, and simply smiles. His skin is pale grey, eyes black and reflective, and his voice echoes oddly, even in enclosed spaces. He speaks in third person and refers to himself as the composite entity. Spock, quietly to Kirk. His signature shifts as though he is several beings wearing one shape. Bem insists on joining the landing party. Kirk reluctantly agrees. Act 2. Disembodied intentions. The crew beams down into the jungle, unnervingly silent save for the distant chittering and the occasional low thrum, like breathing earth. They lose contact with the ship almost immediately. Like any good horror story, the air is thick with magnetic interference. Bem splits. Literally, his limbs detach and skitter away. His torso floats along. Only his head remains with Kirk, very much like the original episode. Bem's head, smiling, goes, "This one prefers multiple perspectives." The away team attempt to regroup, but one by one they find pieces of Bem. His hand still moving, pointing at something they can't see. His leg perched atop a tree like it's climbing it. Then crew members start to disappear. Sulu vanishes mid-sentence. One red shirt is found fused in the roots of a tree, his mouth open in a silent scream, though his body shows no wounds. Uhura begins to hear whispers, her own voice repeating the thoughts she hasn't spoken. Act 3. The Thing Beneath the Skin. Spock discovers that Pandorians are not merely shapeshifters, they're collective entities. Minds distributed across multiple body parts, capable of dispersing themselves in local ecosystems. Kirk suspects Bem is not observing, he's testing them, and worse, he may be infecting them. They find the real Bem's brain case encased in a tree, fused to the planet's nervous system. The creature they've been following isn't a Pandorian anymore, it's something else. Spock. The Pandorian entity is dissolved. He is now a composite of other life forms, perhaps including those who came before us. The jungle pulses, the trees breathe, the ground shivers, the planet is a body. Bem's face forms into a canopy above them, dozen of eyes twisting. Can you see I've started to get a theme going through my episodes. I'm going to create a whole universe of my stories. So, this one learns by merging. Act 4, escape or join. Kirk orders immediate extraction, but the planet's grip tightens. Roots seize them. Air thickens to choke and fog. Spock attempts to sever the mental link between Bem and the jungle using a Vulcan mind meld, but it almost doesn't return. He brings something back with him. The crew fight their way to the transporter site one by one. They're beamed out, but Bem's voice follows them into the transporter buffer, whispering through the static. Now we are Starfleet. Back on the ship, all systems return to normal. Kirk logs the mission as a failure, though he refuses to elaborate. In sickbay, Spock sits quietly. McCoy approaches. McCoy is like, "Are you alright?" And Spock's like, "Perfectly functional." Spock turns, his eyes flashing momentarily black, like beams, and the voice layers with many. This one thanks you for the perspective. The end.
That ending is the same as your last ending, wasn't it?
I know, I'm getting a theme.
Naughty.
To be fair, it's a classic ending, and I have this vision that Spock has this. It's now a standard joke that something either happens to Spock or it happens to McCoy from the episodes that I've seen, and this is now why it's a thing. It's a theme. Plus, I like to upset Spock.
Every pitch that Becca ends with is going to end up with someone not being themselves by the end
Because
of the
it's
episode.
horror. It's horror.
See, I was just wondering, where's Kurt Russell? Because it feels like the plot of a movie with Kurt Russell.
It does.
Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah, it does.
I
You're
mean,
right.
that's one, but I was thinking one with a glowy face thing.
Yeah, to be fair, I think I just like turning these type of episodes into horrors because it's so easily done. There are such interesting concepts. Like the last one with the what was the last episode called? It was Spock's brain. Spock is such an interesting character because you could turn the Vulcans into things from horror so easily. Some of the best episodes of Enterprise are episodes that are involved in horror and the Vulcans, and just by the concept of them being able to do mind melds, and they've got this cool collective appearance. It's so easily to twist and turn, and I love that as a concept.
Fair. To be fair, I nearly went horror with this. I nearly had Ben basically started to halve his body parts.
It's such an easy one. The other way I was thinking of going, because I had two versions wrote. The other one was more Frankenstein, with obviously the discombobulated body parts and stuff. That was kind of my other one, but I kind of like this one ever so slightly more.
I'll tell you because I'm going to come on to my pitch in a minute. I'll tell you about the idea I had that I didn't do in the end, which I'm a little bit sad I didn't do, but you would have both enjoyed. It would have involved Kirk, Spock, and McCoy having to assume control of different parts of Bem's body, like a colony entity, and it would have been like controlling a Megazord. Yeah. Could you imagine? That would have been great fun to play with.
And I think there are just so many ideas you could have done with this episode. But they went with that.
Bem as a character, there's elements of him you could do. I mean, you could do the horror thing, you can do the silliness thing. There's quite a lot of potential in a character like that. That's cool. I enjoyed that too. I enjoyed that. I feel like you've got some creepy elements that kind of linger through each one of your pitches, like people getting sucked into things or things with multiple eyes staring at you.
And like I said, I am creating a Star Trek horror universe, one episode at a time.
As a fan of creepypastas, I'm here for that.
Let's hear your pitch, Paul.
My pitch, okay. So my knowledge of the animated series is pretty weak. I've not watched it in a long time. I've caught some of the reviews, but I've not really watched episodes for a long time. The character of Bem didn't really click for me that well, so I've changed a few things. Probably not as much as Ben did, but I've changed a few things. So here we go. The opening is going to be roughly the same. We're introduced to Honorary Commander Bem. I think is his title. I don't know. They said he's a commander, but We're told that he's joined the crew as an observer from Starfleet. From early on, right at the beginning of the episode, Bem grates on people. He's very belligerent, very socially awkward, quite ignorant of people, offensive towards people. But it's not like, I want to say almost childlike, but not quite. Just sort of quite plays it off as innocence. We're also introduced to this planet they're investigating, Delta Theta 3, which I can't say too quickly. So there are reportedly natives on this planet, but also what appears to be a strange energy field that they are planning to investigate because they can't understand. So we have to get around the fact, and this comes into play, like, why are they actually visiting this planet if there's already life forms there? It seems a bit strange for them to do that. But when does Kirk ever need an excuse? When assembling a landing party, Bem insists on coming along to observe. Much like in the original, Bem is a total loose cannon on this away mission. As soon as they land, he runs off, starts chasing life signs, kind of going, he wants to do everything, wants to see everything, really reckless, and then starts running after and looking at, kind of trying to kind of track down these aboriginals on the planet, the natives, which Spock immediately observes is in direct contravention of the Prime Directive. And so why would a Starfleet person be doing this? Kirk wants to chase Bem down and stop him, but before he can intervene, Bem is captured by these Aboriginal natives. They've got spears and they catch Bem and put him in a kind of bamboo cage thing. I don't know. Concerned about the consequences of his capture, Kirk decides to send the rest of the away team back to the ship, and he and Spock will rescue Ben from captivity when it goes dark, so nobody can see them. So they'll do a little night raid and sneak in. During this attempted jailbreak, while it's dark, Ben accidentally alerts the locals, who then also capture Kirk and Spock. Whoops! Ben claims his innocence, despite Kirk's growing frustration and annoyance. But he's holding his nerve, but he's genuinely annoyed. Ben then splits his body into several pieces to slip out of the cage and free them. Yeah, why didn't he do that earlier? Unfortunately, they've lost all their equipment. They've got no communicators, no tricorder, no phasers. So they are trapped on the planet in the middle of this village with no way to contact the ship or escape. Ben, in his wisdom, suggests, why don't we just ransack the camp to find our equipment? It's very important that we get back to the ship. Who cares what happens to these people? Kirk and Spock, however, are very unwilling to breach the Prime Directive any further and refuse to do so. Even Kirk, I would point out, is very clear that, this has gone too far. We can't interfere with these people any further. And so they decide to leave the campsite, Kirk and Spock, immediately, kind of before anybody can see them. However, Bem stops them and actually raises the alarm even further, and a supernatural force freezes them in place, much like happens in the original episode. Bem is then joined by this unearthly entity, disembodied voice. It is the guardian of Delta Theta 3, the protector of its children, these aboriginals, these aliens that are native to the planet. Bem is not actually a Starfleet officer, but actually an extension of this entity. It's Harbinger. Sorry, I'm not allowed to say that. That's a bit of a creepy thing. Becca will understand that one. Bem is an emissary of this planet. It's an extension. It was intended to study Kirk. This was an ironic twist that the Watchers, these people who were observing and investigating, were themselves being watched and investigated by the planet. The being planted Bem on the ship as a way to test their intentions, to push them, see how far would they go? What would they do? What would they be willing to do? Would they be willing to damage the planet's inhabitants for their own freedom? How far would they go to investigate and explore? It relates that it's actually quite impressed, despite concerns about how Kirk was originally behaving towards Bem. It suggests that, in refusing to do anything about the natives and refusing to cause disruption, it has passed the test. For now, at least. It wishes to send Ben back with them to learn more about the Federation, whether the Delta Theta may eventually want to be part of the Federation. In the meantime, Kirk agrees to set quarantine around the planet to dissuade other people from interfering, and they leave with Ben joining them on the ship to head back to the Federation Starbase. On the ship, Kirk and Spock round things out by making the observation that they really are all children in relation to the universe. Some, Kirk notes, looking pointedly at Bem, are more childlike than others. The end.
Oh, that was great, Paul. I like that. I like the last moment where Kirk, you've kind of kept the standard like Kirk or Spock having a joke at the end. Yeah, I like
Has
that.
to happen.
Yeah,
Has to happen at the end of any original series content.
yeah.
Yeah, and you easily kept it the closest to the original
Yeah.
plot.
Someone's keeping to the rules.
Yeah.
Well, us unruly children are like.
Although, on the subject of rules, technically speaking, Kirk doesn't break the Prime Directive out the most out of the captains. Picard actually beats him.
Well, Kirk's got the rep.
Yeah. Yeah, Picard breaks more rules than any other Starfleet captain, which I find hilarious. Because he's the one who's got the reputation as a goody two-shoes.
Wow.
Yeah, I didn't deviate too far from the original. I found, as I say, I found this hard episode to really do that for and get creative with. But I figured just flipping it around slightly, so Bem is more to kind of Bem is the sleeper agent. Surprise twist. I feel like made most sense.
It's good. I like you said, you were the one that kept the most to the original plot as per the instructions. I like it. Yeah, it's a simple change that actually makes the episode make sense. Gold star.
Woo-hoo.
Yes. It was fun.
Famous last words then.
And not one Greg's sausage roll in sight from
not
any
one
of
Greg's
us.
sausage roll in sight. Oh, and I didn't have an NPC called Chris.
And
Not
there
this
were
time.
no Horgons.
No Horgons either. Wonderful. Okay, well, that rounds out our pitches. As per usual, we'll be popping a poll in our Discord to see what people liked out of these three pitches the most. If that poll is finished by the time the next one of these comes around, we'll find out whose was the most appreciated by our audience. Any final words on Bem as an episode? Any thoughts?
No, I do think that everyone should watch the animated series though. I think it gives a lot more detail to the world, and there are aspects of it that are brilliant, and it's really, really good writing fuel.
Yeah, I mean, I think, like I said earlier, the animated series I find to be, it's kind of like Voyager for me, in that I find it to be either really, really good or really, really bad, with very few episodes that fall in the middle ground.
I agree.
But in terms of world building, it's absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, it's some of the concepts are things that I've been using on SS Mary Rose before I had properly watched, the show. So yeah, I would just highly recommend it. The episodes are like 25 minutes.
Yeah. My final comment on the episode though is I haven't watched it for 24 years before yesterday, and I hope never to watch it again.
Yeah, it's not an episode I would watch. I think this is the episode that I had to watch several times when I was reviewing it, because I think I kept forgetting things, or I kept thinking, oh, I've missed something. No, I hadn't. It just wasn't explained.
Yeah, I've watched it twice in 33 years, and I feel like that's one time too many.
Yes, it's a difficult one, but we'll see who wins.
Yep.
It's not about the competition.
Rewrite!
And on that bombshell, we'll finish our episode there. I finish with my classic little outro, which is keep reading, right?